So let's welcome the next speaker, Sahil. He's from Brevo. Sahil, let's have you on stage. A huge round of applause, guys.
Hello everyone, good afternoon. As we are concluding to the end of the event, so I hope you must be excited about the after party and cocktails. Everyone? Okay. So I'm going to present on a topic which I want to synonymous with the how we make cocktails. So while making a cocktail, ingredients play a major role, right? If you mess up with the ingredients, then your experience with the cocktail can differ based on the experience mix. Same is with the architecture in front-end technologies. If you put the right tooling, configuration, templates together in right proportion, then it could scale very well. But if you mix up with the ingredients, so it could differ in taste. It could differ in the scalability. Maybe you might not get as fruitful results as you can. So, okay. I'm going to present on a topic how we can scale enterprise applications using micro frontend and monorepos. So how many of you are familiar with micro frontends? Okay, how many of you have implemented micro frontend in your product solutions? Okay, how many of you are familiar with monorepos? And how many of you have used monorepos? And both of them together? Okay, cool. So as you all might be knowing the main challenges and what all benefits we get out of those. But okay, the first thing that I want to present on is this is the agenda which we will be talking about. First is the architectural choices that we have while building front-end solutions. Second, I'll be touching on what micro front-ends are, and then a short discussion on monorepos and how micro frontend and monorepos complement each other, and at last, what do we infer from this? Okay, so I will try to explain my journey at Brevo. Back in 2019 when I joined, we were comparatively small, and we were using monolithic architecture where front end and back end was in a single repository. Okay, so our team was small, we didn't face any challenge, it was going good, it was scaling well, everything at one place, and we were happy. But as our product need grows in size, we face major challenges with monolithic architecture. The main challenge which we face is the development time slows down over the period of time, because everything at a one place, you are changing something and your whole application needs to be redeployed, the waiting time increases, so your development time is slow down. Second major challenge is if some error occurred, then the whole system can break if you haven't handled that properly. And thirdly is the scalability. In front-end technologies, we often use utilities, common components, functions, so everything is at one place. So if you want to scale an individual piece standalone, you can do that, but it's a lot of effort because everything is tightly coupled. Okay. Then what we did is we bring out the front end out of that monolithic architecture. We build a separate repo for that, where from development till building and testing and then deployment is separated out. So what we did, we were able to loosely couple these two things, front end and back end. Okay. But the major challenge, one major challenge we were facing at that point is the business comes up with the problem, like when a user is navigating from one application to another, there is a whole reload on the website because the assets were getting downloaded from the scratch, even though most of them are reused. So we looked into the community what we can do about this. So here we came across micro frontend back in 2019. I'm talking about. At that time, micro frontend was released with Webpack 5 module federation plugin. All those things were coming in. So we gave it a shot. We explored that, and the result is, so in micro frontend, those can be. I'll talk about micro frontends in my further slides, but I'll give you an idea. It's basically breaking down your large front-end application into smaller chunks, which you can independently deploy. Okay, so one part of the problem was solved. So we were able to have separate smaller front ends. But the main challenges which this particular architecture brought is, so you have multiple repos now, multiple repos which are using the shared tooling, using the shared tooling as well as the configuration and the common, how I can manage those. So to manage it, basically, then we move to how we can share the common components. We again look into the industry. Okay, we came across this monorepo concept. So so monorepo is basically nothing but it's a single repo with independent. You can have separate workspaces for your applications, and you can reuse the shared tooling. Then comes in Brevo, we have marketing applications also, which are in front of the login. Okay, so those applications, their business need is very good if you solve those with Jamstack architecture, because SEO and performance is very critical over there. So we have used Jamstack, and if you visit brevo.com, so we have built brevo.com using this architecture. Then this is the future thing we are currently exploring on, how we can render child application inside the container using server-side rendering. Meaning at the server only we do the computation which child needs to be rendered. So we are currently exploring that. Okay, so the key in, before that, so what micro frontends are? Okay, so micro frontend, before going to micro frontend, we were talking about cocktails, right? So everybody here, how many of you love cocktails? Okay, so you might have your own choices while you are consuming the cocktail. So same is with the micro frontend. So a certain team is very good with certain tech stack, okay, their own tooling. So we don't want to restrict them. So maybe some of you like mojito, and some of you like old fashioned, and some of you like, which is the strongest one? Which is the strongest one? Anybody? Alright. Okay. So same is with the micro frontend architecture. Micro frontend architecture enables you can have separate repos where you can choose your own tech stack, you can build your own pipeline, you can build your own tooling, and you can deploy them separately to a specific domain. So first thing is, it does not restrict you on the technology. So here, but making sure you are able to consistently render all this application together in a container. Okay. Then we'll talk about now what micro frontend enables. The first thing it enables is team autonomy, meaning it is not dependent on each other. Second is team agnostic, meaning you can use your own tech stack, whether it's React, Vue, Angular. Thirdly, it is able to scale very well because every application is not dependent upon one another. So you are very easily able to scale them independently. Okay. So now I would like to discuss with you the architecture that we follow while implementing the monorepos. So here we have the end user. End user is coming to the main application. Main application is deployed on like app.brevo.com. So this main application is responsible for rendering the container. Inside the container, we have a layout where we are rendering the header and the navigation and the body of the application. Okay. This navigation and header, they are also independently deployed, which are consumed at the runtime through federated modules. So it is a separate team which is looking into this. Then comes the body of the application, meaning a user has navigated to app.brevo.com on a specific route. In the specific route, we are going to load the configuration, and this configuration is responsible for calling the remote entry container, which knows how to load this particular child application. And this child application gets initialized and rendered inside the body of the application. So the beauty of this architecture is the end user who is coming to your website doesn't feel a thing, even though your application is divided into separate, independent, deployable websites, which are integrated in a main container. So this thing we want to solve. So here, when a user now navigates from app 1 to app 2, he does not see a whole reloading of the application. So, and this single, like for example, child app A, B, C container, this whole application is built using this architecture where we have the application and this is the building and testing tools. And one thing which I want to point out here is this shared deployment workflow. So our websites are deployed on Cloudflare pages, which scales very well. And for that, we have written a shareable workflow, which is reused across the organization front-end repositories. So the beauty of this is if you want to add something, you need to just add it one place, and you are able to control your deployment. So this is the emojis where how it interacts with the individual pieces. Okay. Now comes the trade-off part. Okay. So with this architecture, everything was good. But the main challenges we faced, because earlier, like for example, we are having 5 to 6 applications which scale very well, like till the time we reached 10, and then when we further grew in number, the main challenge that we faced is related to the tooling. So whenever we create a new micro front-end application, the tooling was getting repeated in each and every application. We were not able to control the tooling part. How we are going to control the configuration, which needs to be consistent across all the application, because now the tooling is getting duplicated. And second part is whenever we onboard a new resource on this architecture, he needs to individually get each and every repo's context before contributing. So the onboarding time increased for us. And thirdly, the third challenge we faced is the cross-app dependencies. If one application needs to communicate with another application, so how we are going to do that? There are certain solutions in market. We can use get submodules. We can use NPM, but those also comes with their own challenge, because you need to build your library, and you need to register it on NPM, and then you are going to track all the dependencies in each and every repo. So that also is I feel it it is not that scalable because there's a manual effort involved in this. So what are the solutions? So I want to control my front-end organization repos from one place. How we can do is we look into the community now, and we came across monorepos. So monorepos, it's a single repository, first of all. It's a single repository which contains multiple distinct applications with well-defined relationships. You consider monorepo, you have a tower where you have certain apartments, right? And you imagine a tower where there's only one apartment. So sometimes people get confused with monorepos with monolithic. Monorepo is way different because their relationship is a key factor that derives it. Okay? So yeah, we'll talk about now how monorepo relationships are defined. If you follow monorepo architecture, you need to define each and every application in its own workspace where you have the full visibility of your product. Second is the accelerated tooling. So you can define a separate workspace in monorepo for this configuration, which you can reuse across your applications which you have defined in the same. Third is cross-project changes. Every time now in a new place, it actually makes it easier for everyone to work with the changes which are reused across different applications, which you can control, and you can make use of some features of monorepo to integrate it well with your certain set of applications which are defined over there. So what monorepo enables us? So we were facing a challenge with tooling. So it solves that. So you have smarter tooling in place. It brings in a better developer experience. How? Because at the end of the day, developer has the full view of what he is working on. Even if he is onboarded to a single repo, but he has the full view of the product, what all things are there. If he has worked with one of the repo, right, then he has the full view of the configuration that we are going to use, what's the build process, how this repo works, and if the same resource you want to use for some other part of the application, you don't need to give him the whole context. And thirdly is the faster releases. So with faster releases, it depends how you are building your solution. Because in our case, we have written a shared workflow which is responsible for deploying the front-end application onto the Cloudflare pages. And we have written some CI/CDs around that, which actually predicts the changes in a certain application, which are then built and deployed separately. But it always depends. So in the starting, I said the ingredients are very important. So if you mess with them, you will get not as fruitful results as you expect. So this is the monorepo architecture we are following as of today, where the main application is divided into three things. First is the app workspace, where all the applications are defined for that particular product. Second is the packages. The packages is just the common components or libraries that you are going to reuse across those applications. And thirdly, we have the separate space for tooling. So this tooling is separately maintaining its own packages, where you can define your linting, tech testing library, and then webpack configuration. And at last, we are using this shared deployment workflow. So this tooling section is reused across libraries as well as applications. In the libraries, we are also publishing this through chain set. It's a topic for another day, like how chain sets scale very well the publishing and the configuration that are required to do so with npm or GitHub packages, wherever you are deploying this. If you look at the application, this application is having its own build process timing, which is reused, and you are reusing the shared workflow. It is able to deploy to the Cloudflare pages. Okay. Now, next is the folder structure that we use. I think most of you are aware of this if you are working with the Monorepo. So it's a pretty basic folder structure that we are following. There's app1, which is having its own source and component pages and the config part. Then we have the packages section, which defines certain packages. And then we have the config. With the configuration, we have separate just configurations, TypeScript, Webpack. And at last, we have the monorepos configuration. Okay, so now we are going to mix these two, micro frontend and monorepos. It unlocks a, I would say, whole new level of productivity and scalability by combining these two powerful tools. So monorepo solves us a use case where we are able to render all the independently deployed application to a single container, but making sure how we are going to manage those individual applications is a key where the monorepo plays a role. In monorepo, we defined separate workspaces for those applications, and then we have the configuration which actually empowers those applications. And with the smarter deployment, you are able to control if a certain change is being done at one of the application, then your CI/CD is going to detect it and is going to build that respective application, and it's going to deploy it using shared workflow onto the Cloudflare pages. And the moment it does it, in the runtime, it is going to reflect onto the main container where your product is deployed. The best part is the team who is responsible for this particular feature, bug, or whatever you are developing on is not dependent on the another team. So the operating model, okay, of micro frontend, first is the shared tooling. I explained you can have a separate workspace and you can control. The beauty of this is if you are adopting, like, let's say, TypeScript in all your front-end application, you are able to control all the dependencies around the TypeScript from one place. You just need to do changes in there, and it will reflect onto all the applications. Second is the consistent build process. This is, again, it depends how you are building your solution for the build process. If you are going to define the configuration properly, and if you are going to reuse it across the applications, then it would scale well. Third is the synchronized changes, where all the applications are at one place, so you have only one repository. It's one umbrella under which all the applications are defined, where you can synchronize those changes seamlessly. Fourth is scalability. Monorepos are very scalable because each and every piece is together, plus it has its own workspace. So you can scale, if you want to scale individual piece, you can scale it separately without affecting the other parts of the application. We are not able to do that in monolithic because everything is very tightly coupled. You are not able to scale individual piece. Here we are able to. Then last is unified pipeline. So unified pipeline is same how you are going to structure your CI/CDs. Okay. So if you are able to define very well CI/CD around this solution for based on your application and packages, so it scales very well. Then comes this is the micro front-end architecture. This is a micro front-end architecture and a monorepo architecture. how we transition from micro frontend to monorepo architecture. So in this, I would like to focus mainly on this individual application A. For example, this application A is having its separate process from building, making use of common tooling plus the shared workflow, and it is deployed on a separate preview URL, and you are able to use the shared tooling in a very best manner, I would say. Now I would like to conclude my talk. So these are the challenges that we faced, but based on your challenges, I would say there is no one size that fits all the front end problems. So when you are choosing a front end architecture, it depends upon your business needs, okay, and at what stage you are currently. So based on your team size, your business needs, plus what is your product. So each and every architecture pattern has its own pros and cons. So at the end of the day, you as a smart developer need to make correct choices when you are developing solutions around front-end problems. Okay, thank you all. This was all about me. So if you want to connect with me, feel free to say hi. I would love to discuss more in detail with you. Thank you.
React India.